This presentation by Group 13 is going to discuss poverty in the Bridgeton area of Glasgow. So, what is poverty? Poverty can be defined as a condition in which a person, family or community are living in, meaning they cannot afford to fulfil even a minimum standard of living. They may have to turn to food banks for clothes or food just to get by. Poverty exists in all age groups. Over 34% of children in Glasgow were estimated to be living in poverty in 2017, and children living in the poorest communities can expect to live 14 years less than those in the wealthier areas. If poverty is not tackled, the cycle of deprivation will never break, and generations of communities will see the same deprivation, as children are less likely to go to school if they are hungry or dirty, so their education will be impacted and they may not get a job or a well paid enough one to break the poverty cycle. Not to the fault of those in poverty, but poverty costs the British taxpayer £78 billion per year, and those areas with the highest levels of poverty are seen to have larger rates of crime, as it may give people a sense of belonging or even a source of money if they are desperate.
Poverty and its impact upon healthcare. Healthcare can be defined as the maintenance or improvement of health via the prevention, diagnosis, treatment, recovery, or cure of disease, illness, injury, and other physical and mental impairments in people. The factor of poverty can play a leading role in determining somebody's status of health, as income can determine things such as quality of diet and accessibility of transport to healthcare, both of which are linked. As someone with a lesser quality of diet, such as fast food meals, will likely be of a heavier weight, i.e. obese, than those who eat fresh cooked meals, as well as taking in less quality nutrients, and therefore likely to become more unwell and have visits to the GP. But if someone does not live locally and has to spend money for transport to the GP, this can additionally be a roadblock. Access to gyms and sports clubs, and even mental well-being can be affected, which if poor can have further consequences, such as stress. Exercise obviously helps maintain physical fitness, but also mental fitness. And if that is not available, this can lead to people again becoming unwell, especially as managing a low income can be stressful in itself. Furthermore, those of a lower income tend to make poor behavioural choices such as excessive drinking or smoking, likely to cope with said stresses, and in turn can come full circle, as if someone is too ill to work, this can keep them in the cycle of poverty.
Bridgeton is a district in the northeast of Glasgow. Its population is 15,550 approximately. In general, the population tends to be young to middle-aged, and this is shown because 76% of the population are ages between 16 and 64 years old, and this is 10% over the average in Glasgow, as within most districts they house higher numbers of elderly people. Over the past 10 years, there have been a high number of young people moving to the area, and this is especially within ethnic communities. Many residents in this area live within poverty, and this is indicated by low life expectancy, overcrowding, and low employment rates, along with many other indicators that I will discuss in the next slides. Living conditions is a huge indicator of poverty because those within a low income are more likely to only be able to rent housing that is of a poor quality, and they may live in cramped conditions with many people within the same building. The statistics show that a quarter of households are overcrowded within this district. Housing is likely to be of a poor quality because 35% of people live within a grade D or E social class and may not be able to afford housing that is of a suitable standard. Only 28% of living spaces are owner occupied. Now, if you look at the graph, you will see a significantly higher proportion of people in Bridgeton live beside derelict or vacant land in comparison to Glasgow's average. In fact, 98% of residents live beside these areas compared to only 35% of the city's population living 500 metres beside derelict land. Vacant and abandoned buildings can be, not all the time, but they can be an indicator of poverty because it suggests that the land is not upmarket or sought over, so therefore it's undesirable for businesses and for housing. This is especially an indicator when it happens often when there's a lot of vacant land. These areas are also common hotspots for crime. As Grace said earlier, in Glasgow, on average 34% of children live in poverty. Unfortunately, in Bridgeton, these numbers are even higher, with 47% of children living in these conditions. This may impact their education, keeping them within the cycle of poverty. Within this district, employment is low. Only 50% of the population in Bridgeton are in employment, meaning that many have to claim benefits. This may be due to poor education as a child, as a result of poverty, along with many other factors such as a lack of work experience or opportunities. This leads to a high proportion claiming benefits such as 11% claim out of work benefits and 24 more people than Glasgow's average claim employment and support allowance. Overall, 25% experience income deprivation. Life expectancy is a huge indicator of poverty because it may be as a result of many factors such as poor nutrition, obesity, or lack of access to healthcare, which is common in those who live in poverty. With men in Bridgeton, the average life expectancy is 67.8 years, and this is 6% lower than Glasgow's average, whereas with females it is 76.6 years in Bridgeton, and on average this is 2% lower than Glasgow's.
In summary, for those living in poverty, they may well have reduced access to nutritious meals and sports facilities, both of which play important roles in maintaining an individual's general health and physical fitness. We found that the life expectancy for those living in a deprived area is reduced, backing up the importance of nutritious food and accessible facilities on health. Those who live in poverty are often forced to live in overcrowded houses, and we found that a quarter of Bridgeton's population lives in an overcrowded house. Living in a deprived area will affect an individual's chances of gaining work experience, their job prospects, which will then affect their income. This could limit the individual's access to transport, which could provide a roadblock for them accessing healthcare. These findings are important, especially to health professionals, which will allow them an insight and an understanding into the effect which poverty has on our population's health, so that we can understand the patient's barriers and give them the right support which they need or require.